Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
In Walmart Sue Nouville, time was ticking away. Only a few nights left till the big holiday. But last-minute gifters had no need to worry. Walmart Express Delivery got their gifts in a hurry. From Nintendo to Nespresso and Lego flowers, they could check off their lists in as fast as an hour. All of Who Nouville, East, West, South, and North, could order gifts up until 5 p.m. on December 24th. So this holiday, just do as the Who's do. With gift delivery this fast, they all gasped. From Walmart, who knew? Subject to availability, terms and fees apply.
Hello everyone, Chris here, and a quick reminder that this episode of How Are the Podcast is sponsored by LiveScore Bet, a principal partner of Sunderland AFC. LiveScore Bet is the home of the total betting experience, combining LiveScore's real-time updates and stats with great odds and offers, all in one slick, easy-to-use betting app. For more information, visit livescorebet.com or download the LiveScore Bet app. And please remember, over 18s only, and please bet responsibly. For more information, go to gambleaware.org. And now, cue the jingle. Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to How Are the Podcast with our sponsors LiveScore Bet. And as you join us on match day once again, and it's a Saturday 3 o'clock kickoff in December, which is a beautiful thing as well. And it follows a busy week because you would think after all of those years, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday in the Championship, we'd be used to midweek games, but 3 games in a row, that includes Liverpool and Manchester City at their place, has just felt like a bit of a crazy week. We had all the reaction from Anfield on the pods this week with Andrew and Martin pulling an all-nighter, or an early morning in Martin's case, after the final whistle. Then Gav was joined by James Copley from the Echo. And then we turned our attentions to Manchester City and we were joined by the brilliant Neda Manua, who was absolutely fantastic earlier this week. And to top it off, I've had a nasty virus. But it is the season for lots of footy and feeling rough one way or another. But today is our match day preview as we build up to the lads taking on City at the Etihad. And to talk over it all, I luckily have 2 gentlemen to stop me from waffling on, because first up we have Jonny Hawley. Hello, Jonny.
Hello, Chris. Yeah, it's good to have you back. It's been a good couple of weeks since we've spoken to each other, I think.
I would say it's good to be back, but it's really not, mate. I'm still absolutely rough as hell.
Hopefully, this is the prelude to a big. It's good to be back if we can take 3 points away from City this afternoon. So fingers crossed for you.
I don't want to think how much painkillers I had before speaking to Neda Manua, but anyway, that. But yeah, the Liverpool thing, because I kind of watched Liverpool game in a bit of a daze, but and I was in a bit of a daze afterwards. I mean, you haven't had much of a chance to talk about it, Jonny. I mean, where's your head at? Because I really just can't decide whether I'm chuffed with getting that point now we played, or whether I'm pissed off we didn't get all 3.
It's one of those that for me, the result gets better the more distance we have from the game. Because in the immediate aftermath, with the chance from Isidore being so late on in the game as well, it felt a lot more like 2 points dropped than it did the exceptional point gained that it clearly is. You know, before the game, we'd have all ripped your hand off for a point. And I know Liverpool have been struggling and everything, but it's still Liverpool. They're still the champions at Anfield. You know, it's not a place that we regularly go and take points. So, yeah, the more that we kind of look at it a bit more dispassionately rather than in the heat of the moment, I'm happier and happier with it as the days go by. But I was I was pretty frustrated at 10:30 or 11 o'clock on Wednesday night, whatever time it was.
I have to admit, even on the school run the days after, I was replaying that Isidore chance. part of us was thinking, and it's funny because Ned Manoa said something actually that because I was part thinking, was it Isidore? But Ned Manoa said, well, he might not have known Chiesa was there,
Yeah.
and kind of hit that shot thinking, well, I've done everything I can.
Yeah, and it's dead easy to look back after the fact, isn't it? And then start saying, I would have shot earlier, or why didn't he go over the keeper, or why didn't he take an extra touch at the end, or whatever. But, when he's got that decision to make, after sprinting half the length of the pitch, with players breathing down his neck, like you say, whether he was even aware of Chiesa, I'm tempted to agree that he wasn't, because he doesn't even look after he beats Alisson. He just beats the keeper and keeps his head down and has the shot. So, you just wonder if he'd seen him, would it have been a bit different? It would be incredibly harsh, I think, to claim that it was a massive mistake from Isidore. But all that being said, your striker's gone round the keeper in the box in the last couple of minutes to win the game. Like, there's no way to spin it that's overly positive. But I do think it was good work from Isidore to get the chance. So, and an exceptional pass from Roofs. So at least we can take some positives from it.
Yeah, that's it. Ifs and buts. It's always ifs and buts in it. But anyway, moving on, because also joining us, we have someone who brought a sense of calm immediately after the final whistle at Anfield, because we have Andrew Smithson with us. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, mate. You must have been feeling ill. If you thought I brought a sense of calm, I was all over the shop after the game, I felt.
Well, there was an element of, Martin introducing you were just like, yeah, what's just happened?
Yeah. I thought the Liverpool performance was a really good shift by Sunderland. But having now seen you and how you were 2 minutes before hitting record and how you're doing now, Chris, I mean, that is the performance of the week. You've honestly, 10 out of 10 from me. You said there it's been a crazy week. I tell you what's crazy. Thursday night, looking at the score between Man United and West Ham, and not hoping West Ham lose because they might be fighting us at the bottom for relegation, hoping that Man United don't win because they might overtake us near the top of the table. I mean, I keep saying this on the pods all the time, but are we really a top half Premier League team at the moment? It's just brilliant to watch.
Even the Leeds game, Leeds-Chelsea, like, you can make an argument. We're almost happier that Leeds won that game, which if you'd gone back, 4 or 5 months and told us that, we'd have all, you'd have been committed to some sort of secure facility and you wouldn't have been let out for a while.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is why Chris is frustrated on the school run the day after. I mean, we're all just so angry with the team because, they've dropped 2 points in our title push. I mean, what a disgrace that was against Liverpool. The chance was there to keep the pressure on Arsenal, and we've gone and shot ourselves in the foot. What a disgrace.
Well, this is it. It is funny because I almost, and I kind of touched on this with Ned Manoa, that there's a case to be said as Sunderland fans. We almost feel guilty about, feeling bad about, that we're thinking we should have won at Anfield and finished off the game. The other thing I was going to say, when you were talking about teams, you look at Wolverhampton Wanderers this season, 2 points in 14 games, 2 draws and 12 defeats. You think we've been there a couple of times, but the other, there was looking at those fixtures, and I think I was talking to a Man United fan on the school run, and he was saying, "Oh, they've got Wolves coming up," and he was like, "Well," he's actually worried because he's thinking Wolves might get their first win against them. But it's this thing in it, Andrew, that you look at games like that, and my instinct is to go, "Oh, I hope Wolves just keep on losing." And then I'm like, "Hang on a minute, they beat Man United. Man United, what, a point behind us?" And you're like, "That would do us a favour."
Yeah, we don't need to worry at the moment. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? Wolves have got 2 points. We've got 2 points just from our games against the reigning Premier League champions and the current league leaders. We got more points away at the current World Club champions in one match than Wolves have in 14 games. Just like you say, it's usually us in that position. Just what is going on at the moment? It's mad. It's mad.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, let's get into it because I want to dive into a couple of things that came out of the fallout from drawing at Anfield that we can pull into the conversation around playing City. When the manager asked after the game, Jonny, about his emotions around the draw, I mean, immediately, of course, said, look, he felt positive around it and it was a positive thing. But then he started going on to say that he felt that we maybe didn't believe enough that it was possible to score. I mean, are you surprised that he said that, given the way that we set up at Anfield in that first half, especially how the first half went as well?
Aside from anything else about the actual game, it's a surprise because Bris doesn't normally give that sort of thing away. You know, that's normally the kind of question he just flat bats back, and it's, well, you know, we did some things right, we did some things wrong, we could learn some lessons, the classic platitudes. So it was surprising a little bit because you're right, particularly the first half. You know, I thought we were, well, I mean, I'm saying particularly the first half, we were never out of the game, basically. You know, we were always not just mathematically in the game because we hadn't conceded yet, but it felt that there weren't large chunks of the game where we were being dominated or having the game dictated to us. Even without the ball, it's a similar way to what I felt about the Chelsea game, I suppose, where even without the ball, it felt like in a lot of ways, sometimes we were still making the running, which is it's kind of been a feature of Bris's teams, hasn't it? So it did surprise me a bit that he almost, it's not quite a scolding, is it, of the team? It's not quite a manager coming out and saying, I didn't think we were at it today or something like that. But it was definitely a bit, it felt a bit more of like a carrot and stick type approach where he's coming out and he's almost trying to use it as maybe just a little bit of motivation for the players to kind of be like, look, yeah, everyone would have taken a point before the game and we're all chuffed, but, actually there's still expectation levels here and we still want to, we're never satisfied, basically. It's a good opportunity for him to reinforce that message, I think, which, I mean, if you read any of the things that come out from Kieran Louis-Dreyfus or Christian Speakman or Florent Gisolfi, like anybody high up at the club has been absolutely, banging on this drum of the standards, and like the standards aren't static. It's always about improvement. We've got to keep progressing. So I think it was maybe just a little opportunity for Bris to just reinforce that message a bit, kind of a little, almost a warning shot to the players to be like, look, you're doing brilliantly, but don't start taking it for granted. You can still improve. There's still levels to get to that we're not at yet. So it was surprising, but I don't think it's an unwelcome surprise. Just a little out of character, I think.
It's Florent Gisolfi now, rather than Florent Gisolfi. I mean, that's going to be.
Yeah, I rolled a mental die there, and it landed on je. Next time it could be g. Who knows what sounds might come out after that?
This is the next battle in pronunciation wars on How We're the Podcast. But yeah, I mean, Andrew, just building off what Jonny was saying there, because I think it's quite interesting that the manager got into that in the press conference, because if you look back at this season, really, from the off, belief is probably the thing that, that almost is the one thing you would not get at this side about, because they've had belief from almost the very beginning, as soon as we kicked off against West Ham. So is it almost like a pokery side, like to say, that you can go more at these, type of team?
Very possibly. He's working with them day in, day out, so he'll be fully aware of what they're capable of. And if he thinks, we're just a couple of % off where we can be, then brilliant. Let's try and eke out that little extra where we can go even better against the top teams. I think as supporters, we're always going to look at things differently. And all three of us here are almost in a sense of amazement at how well Sunderland have done. And we're scratching ourselves and trying to wake ourselves up and thinking, is this really happening? But Bris doesn't have the emotional side of it. He's a professional, and he, as I say, is getting to see these players all the time, and he must just have that little sense of, we're doing great, we can get even better, and to be in that position is phenomenal. I said it on Wednesday night, and I'll say it again. Every time Bris speaks, I'm just chuffed a bit with what he's saying. I I can't remember him putting a foot wrong now for months. He just seems to be just at the exact right level and pitches things perfectly. So yeah, maybe he has given a couple of players a bit of a nudge there, but he hasn't blasted anybody or hung out dirty laundry in public. He just seems to get all of these things judged perfectly.
Yeah. He gives so little away that you do look at comments like that, and actually, there may be a case of making a bigger thing of it, but because he gives so little away, when he does give some insight away, with comments like that, Andrew, you do wonder where it's directed to. Is it directed to the players? Is it directed to the fans to think, to say, have more belief in this side? Is it the players to say, you can attack more, you can try more things? I mean, you do wonder where he directs these comments.
Yeah, maybe he wants the Sunderland fans to accept that we are where we are and we can be even better. I mean, that would be crazy. I've never known a Sunderland manager have to remind the fans, "Oh yeah, we're cracking here. Let's see if we can get our heads around it." Normally, it's the manager having to apologize for things or the fans not happy. So yeah, maybe it's directed at us. Maybe it's directed at other teams even. Maybe he's thinking, yeah, people will be watching us against Liverpool and starting to panic, but let's just give them that little bit of extra worry that we're not even at 100% yet, and there's more to come.
Yeah,
Good times, isn't it?
Yeah, complete reversal from our last year in the Premier League when we had a manager saying, "Oh, we're in trouble."
Yeah.
But Jonny, you also said that Sunderland was surprised, or he was surprised, and I think the team was surprised by how much time and space we were given to build up play. And he said that was a bit of a shock to the players. I mean, do you think that is something we might actually have to get used to if teams start giving us a little bit more respect in the second half of the season?
It's the classic, we'll see how you are when you get worked out sort of thing, isn't it? We've heard it multiple times this season already from various fan bases, and, you see it on social media and stuff, Sunderland are doing well now, but eventually people will figure them out, and then let's see them, second half of the season, next season, or whatever arbitrary time period gets picked this time. But it is true though that it's certainly an aspect of our build-up play in particular that we need to work on. It's as simple as that. It's something that obviously wasn't going to be a priority last season. It was Bris had only just came in. He had to, first and foremost, he needs to just establish the fundamentals, get the team solid. And thankfully he managed to do all that in pretty short order, and we, had the season that we did. And then you get promotions, so you come up. Your first priority in the Premier League can't be expansive attacking play. We've just seen 2 seasons worth of very, very solid evidence as to why that would be a huge mistake. I mean, not to mention all of the other seasons gone by, but the last 2 in particular were real educations on why pragmatism can be so important. So we always had to do it this season the way that we have, and come up focusing on obviously the out of possession stuff and direct player counter-attacks and stuff like that. So it makes sense as the logical kind of next step, I think, for a direction that we can take the team and try and develop. Because firstly, like you say, if we maintain this league position, then teams are just going to have to take us more seriously, and they're going to have to sit a bit further back, restrict the space a bit more. It's something that we've seen this. I mean, you think back to Leicester's title-winning team. One of the big criticisms from everyone that season was, why do people just keep letting Leicester counter-attack them? Why did they just keep leaving 40 yards for Jamie Vardy in behind? And then eventually the next season, people started cottoning on, but not at the time. We've got to make sure that we've got a bit of insurance against that. So even if people do, and look, this is all the caveat with the fact that I don't think Bris is the kind of manager who can just be worked out. He's got different plans in different games, but you want to make sure that you're prepared for if teams do start going that way. So I think it definitely makes sense for us to do it. And I saw what he meant in the game as well. Part of it, I wonder whether it was maybe just because it was Brian Brobby's first start. So he's not quite had the level of time on the pitch with the other lads to build up some of those connections and dynamics. So yeah, it could have just been, to a degree, a little bit of short-term, change in the side, but it's definitely something that I think, Bris will be aware of that, and it's something I'm sure they've got a plan behind the scenes to work on in training and probably in recruitment as well. I mean, January's only around the corner, so that's it's another potential aspect of new signings that could factor in. But yeah, in the immediate term, I don't imagine we're going to go out this afternoon playing expansive, open, 6 men, 7 men forward type football. But I think over time we'll start to see us at least go that way a bit.
I I I think that, yeah, teams always need to change and adapt and progress and tweak things, but I don't think there's much to work out about Sunderland. We've just got good players who are organised. It's not a simple case of everything goes through one player or we only play one style. We change formations and systems at regular points in a game or in a half, never mind over the course of a few weeks. So it's always going to be hard to pin us down. You don't work out Manchester City or Arsenal. They're just cracking teams.
But as the other thing in the press conference, he was also asked a little cheeky question to say how many points he's wanting from this run of games, which he was never going to answer, to be fair. But he did give a bit of insight, Andrew, to how he thinks, because he said it's more about how we are playing. And then he said the important thing is that we learn from the different experiences to give the best version of Sunderland, because all we can control is our levels, which I think answered the question with a pretty straight bat. Better than England out in Australia at the moment. He should head out. But I mean, you talked a bit about the game at Anfield, and you talked about the ins and outs and the how we set up and everything like that. But what's the biggest things we can take from the game at Anfield into the game at City?
It's that belief that we can push the very best teams and make them panic, and yet there's still room to improve. It's a brilliant position to be in. I've said already, this wasn't like a fluke result. We got the point because we deserved it and we played well and we made Liverpool panic. And if you can do that to Liverpool, you can do that to virtually every team in the country. So, yeah, we are changing from a team who people were perhaps expecting us to struggle and maybe have to lick our wounds a couple of times in the season and take a few beatings. I don't think we're in that position anymore. And yeah, the players and the fans can now have a bit of belief and go to Manchester City and not we're not talking about lashing £100 down on Sunderland, thumping them 5-0, but would anybody be that surprised if we pushed them all away and got something from the game? I don't think so.
Well, that's a brilliant place to end us on for this part in terms of belief, because in the next part we'll go through our glorious record at Manchester City in recent years. So we'll break for a couple of ads and we'll be back after these.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Welcome back to How We're the podcast with our sponsor LiveScore Bet. And as I said before the adverts, we're going to go into our glorious record, because going into playing City in the past, I'll go through our record against them in a moment, but I was actually amazed to see that we only played them 4 times in the 1990s. For comparison, we played them 11 times in the noughties. So I'm just going to look at this century, which does make our record look worse, I have to admit. But we didn't. We didn't. We only played them 4 times in the decade before that, because in this century we played them 28 times home and away, and won just 5 of them. We've lost on 20 occasions out of the 28, and we've never won at the Etihad either. Our record at the Etihad, we've played 11, lost 9, drawn 2. We haven't won against Manchester City in Manchester since January 1998, when Kevin Phillips scored and we won 1-0. The big thing about that game, actually, because I was there, was watching Craig Russell in a City shirt, which just didn't seem right on the night, and never really did. But Jonny, and we touched on it, we were laughing about it before we started recording, but when it comes to taking on City, where does your head immediately go in terms of playing them like this?
Well, out of those 11, it's not one of the 9 defeats, which leaves a 50-50 chance. What's behind, door number 1? It's 2011-12. I think that's the right season anyway, which that was the 3-3, where a certain, large Greek man came into the back 4 in the second half. May have had a slightly less than ideal impact on the day, as I recall. Also the day where, was it Matt Kilgallen tried to, Rabona a cross in from the back post or something? It's a shame that it ended up being, in the end, a little bit of a disappointing result. Slightly reminiscent of the way we were talking about the Liverpool game, actually, because obviously that season was the season City won the title with the Aguero, the most famous goal in Premier League history. And we went unbeaten against the champions that season. We played Man City at home in the famous, last-minute G winner, one of G Dong-won's only good moments on Weir side. And then in the away game, I think we were 3-1 up, weren't we? And we looked pretty set fair going into the closing stages of the game. Sotirios Kyriakos comes on, and
I was trying to think, because he came on for Kilgallen. Did Kilgallen take a knock? He must have gotten injured.
I can't remember whether it was a knock or whether he just took him off to try and keep him fresh or something. But whatever the reason was, we could have done without it, because we were 3-1 up. I can't remember the goal scorers from that day, actually. So I'm sure you can rattle them off.
Yeah, Larson opened the scoring for us on the half hour. Balotelli had a penalty just before half time. Bentner and Larson, they then put us 3-1 up with 10 minutes into the second half. And then last 5 minutes, Balotelli got one, and a minute later, Kolarov got the equaliser.
Yeah, I always remember that Bentner definitely scored that game, just because it was so notable in my head for Bentner to have scored. I don't forget many of them. Who can forget the one off his shoulder against QPR as well? Anyway, that game against, I mean, it was, looking back, it was a mental game, really. You've got Sunderland, who we weren't quite relegation fodder at that point, but we'd had a pretty brutal first half of the season. Obviously, it turned around when O'Neill came in. So it would have been a real shock for us to turn up to the Etihad and take 3 points. Then to be 3-1 up with such little time left in the game and see it almost completely turn on its head, but go back to 3-3. There was late drama, there was lots of goals, there was Matt Kilgallen pulling out skill moves. It was, I imagine it was pretty high up the running order on Match of the Day, put it that way. So it was a good game of football, and as disappointing as it was in the end, and as much as I remember it with a touch of regret now, it was still a great result for us. And as you established, slim pickings at the Etihad, so it's not stiff competition knocking it, around the top of that leaderboard. It's a pretty firm number 1 for me.
Well, that's it. It's going to be a quick section today because Andrew, Jonny's picked one of the draws that we've had at the Etihad of the 2. But we haven't had many good memories in recent years going to City. But is there any trips there that stick out for you?
Well, I mean, this was sobering when you said we're just going to focus on this century, because
you can pick any. I'm just for the records. I thought I'd just pick this century.
No, I know exactly why you did it. But yeah, when I was thinking, we'll be talking about past games at Man City, and I was like, there was that time I was there and Kevin Phillips scored. We won 1-0, and that was a good result. And then for you to then say this century, was just like a real hammer blow because, yeah, my most recent memory of Man City isn't even in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won 1-0 and Phillips scored a goal which saw him equal some sort of club record for successive goals in games. That was a great day. But since then it's been desperate. Probably one of the highlights at the Etihad was that day when there was a horrific storm and the game got postponed. So we avoided
Was that the day Mark Hughes got sacked?
Oh, no, that was a game where we actually did well, and I think we lost.
We lost 4-3.
Yes.
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 Yeah, that was it, because that didn't get called off. It was just a blizzard. Just.
Yeah.
But I remember me and my dad were in the car, like dead snowy, traffic's at a standstill, and obviously we just got beat. And then it came on the radio, Mark Hughes is just being sacked, and we were like,
Yeah.
What? How good do they think they are that they just win? Sack the manager? Admittedly, I think they made the right call in the end, let's be honest.
They did, but yeah, that is yet another point of just how bad Sunderland were in previous Premier League eras, that beating us 4-3 wasn't deemed adequate. Whereas if you ask Man City fans this afternoon, what would you take beating Sunderland by 1 goal? They'd be over the moon with it. They'd be chuffed. But there was definitely a time when there was a game postponed because of storms. I think that was then when it was rearranged. I think that was the famous other draw against them where we thought we were going to beat them. There was a last-minute goalkeeping error from Manone, but the fact that we'd gone there, we'd pushed them hard, we were winning 2-1 until the death, I think that still gave us a lot of belief and was one of the things that started off the Great Escape under Poyet.
If you could manufacture a pill that could make somebody fully believe that they were in the past, right? If you could give Connor Wickham a pill that makes him believe it's that day, he's getting 60 goals a season. Because that day Connor Wickham was unbelievable. A short-lived prime that of about 5 or 6 games, but what a prime it was.
Wasn't that one of his goals as well? I think it was Jaccarini. We all thought Jaccarini had quality about him, but that was one of the days when you saw it. I seem to think we hit them on the break and he played a perfect ball through. So yeah, if there's a spare pill, give that one to Jaccarini and we can have a bit more of that from him as well.
Yeah, well, it must be that old that story, when someone gets a bad bang on the head and he goes, he doesn't know who he is, Gaffer, because we'll tell him he's Pele and get him back on.
Tell him he's Connor Wickham in late May 2014 and get him back on.
I've never actually been to the Etihad, but I was at Main Road when Steve Bold got injured. It was August 2000 when Paolo Wanchop got a hat-trick, and I actually saw George Weah play in the flesh in a Joe Royal Manchester City side. I mean, what a sentence that is. When we got beat 4-2, I mean, George Weah playing up front with Joe Royal. I mean, thinking about him at Oldham Athletic, any other players there, and then he was managing George Weah a few years later. But yeah, so I was there at Main Road for that one. I remember. The labyrinth that is offside on the way to Main Road.
We've spoken about that game before, Chris, because I was there, and yeah, wasn't it the follow-up to Varga's amazing debut against Arsenal?
Yes.
And then he ended up being injured.
Varga got injured, Bold came on from them, Bold got injured.
Yeah.
And then they scored, I think it was 2-2 at the time, and then they scored 2 late goals and won 4-2. But yeah, anyway, so and the other thing as well, I mean, we've lost the last 7 consecutive games against City, home and away in all competitions as well. So now we've got the scale of the task in hand sorted. We can get into it a bit more. But Jonny, just looking at the Liverpool game, we've been talking about it a little bit on this. We've been talking about it on pods all week. We've been thinking, what a performance! The lads were brilliant. The rest of the world, however, seems to be hung up on how bad Liverpool were. I mean, do you think, looking at the City game, will the same type of performance have a similar effect on City as it did Liverpool? Or is this going to be a completely different test for us?
I think it's one of those where essentially, because you play in a club that's so big, in terms of profile and media coverage and stuff, just naturally, all of the coverage is slanted towards whatever the prevailing sort of direction of wind is for that club. So we beat Chelsea, and Chelsea were doing all right. So it was a bit more like, oh, wow, that's a great result for Sunderland, that. And a little bit less, that's a catastrophe for Chelsea, because they were known to be inconsistent. Everybody knows that Chelsea have got that kind of result in them, as well as turning Barcelona over 3-0. Then we go against Arsenal, and that really is like, wow, Sunderland were brilliant against Arsenal, taking that point, weren't they? Because all everybody talked about for the last 8 weeks beforehand was how Arsenal are the best team in the country and don't concede goals and never even concede chances. So that's what, bloody hell, Sunderland were good. Then because Liverpool have, I don't know what the run is now, but I know at one point they'd lost 9 in 12 or something in all competitions, which worst run in more than 70 years. So then no matter what we actually do, however we play, if we take a point or more, it's what a disaster for Liverpool, because that's just already the narrative. So I think, certainly because as well, we haven't been in the league long enough again to have the level of almost gravitas to be able to change those narratives ourselves. So I think it's one of those things where at the end of the day, like, it's meaningless really. The players and the staff won't care. But we as fans probably just have to still just suck it up for a bit and accept, like, doesn't matter how we actually play in a lot of these games. It's all going to basically have been predetermined before a ball's kicked. Like, if Sunderland win, it's well done Sunderland today. If they lose today, it's just one of those where I think the size of and the scope of the media coverage just it becomes to such an extent where the objectivity and the actual, the truth of the football that you're watching is sometimes secondary. That's just the name of the game these days, isn't it?
Yeah, I did have to laugh when Jimmy Carragher was saying Liverpool are awful here. Oh, but this is the first time I've seen Sunderland. I went, oh, okay, so you've got nothing to go off to see how well we're playing. But anyway.
Carragher, who, by the way, was still predicting us to go down into like the end of September, and admits to not watching us.
Yeah, like a quarter of the season gone, third of the season gone, or whatever it is, and he's like, oh, well, it's the first time I've seen this in the flesh. But Andrew, again, going back to the Liverpool game and looking forward to this one. And again, you might bring into the comments that the manager was making, as we talked about earlier. There were points in the game where I thought we had possession just outside our own box, in our own half. We seemed quite casual with the ball, and it's happened a few times, I think, in recent weeks. And I look at that, and I think McAllister actually ended up hitting the post off one occasion where we lost the ball just outside our own box. I mean, do you think this is just a risk we take because it's a way we play to try and draw them out, and that's a clever thing? Or do you think it's maybe a touch of overconfidence creeping in?
I think you can make arguments for both of those. We do like to not take risks in possession, but we don't just stuff it up our jumper and play safe. We are quite open, and we've got a couple of skillful players who are going to try things which won't always come off. Against Liverpool, yeah, there were times though when that crept into us being sloppy, and that was something I remember saying after the Arsenal game. Mm. It's probably the biggest concern I have is that we give away possession cheaply. It cost us against Bournemouth. We lost the ball and it's led to them scoring. So we can tighten up on that, but it'll never be to the point where we never give possession away again, because it is part of the way we want to play football. Somebody like Enzo Lefebvre is going to lose the ball every now and again, but you learn to live with it, because the time he does keep the ball and he spreads it out wide or whatever, it'll bring about a goal. Jonny, earlier on in the podcast there, was talking about previous promoted teams and how they came up and they were lauded for being attacking. And somebody like Pep Guardiola, he always congratulates a team when they try and play football the right way. What that actually means is it was a piece of cake for us to beat yous. and I didn't want to have to put any thought into it. He always says that teams, it's funny how the poorest teams who are negative are always the teams who have got a point against them or pushed them all away.
Yeah, nobody gets more praise from Pep Guardiola post-match than a manager he's just pumped 7-0.
Exactly. Exactly. But I was thinking there, were these promoted teams, were they actually attacking or were they just wide open? Because I think Sunderland, there's a danger of saying, oh, Sunderland are doing so well because they're just boring and defensive. I don't think we're boring and defensive. I see us threatening teams. I mean, crikey, we've hit the post a couple of times against Liverpool. I've said this before, but we were the first team to get a shot on target against Arsenal in however long. We scored 2 against them. We scored 2 at Chelsea. I think we're actually more of a threat than some of these supposed teams who came up over the last couple of seasons. I don't remember Southampton actually scoring many goals or making teams worry. They gave an impression of being attacking, but actually it was just they were horribly imbalanced. We can manage being able to create a threat whilst also not leaving ourselves like being like lambs to the slaughter at the back. And that balance for me is doing a whole lot better, I would say. And yeah, unfortunately, to be able to do that against some of the very best players in the world, there might be times when we get caught out. The reason it's an issue is, I dare say the stats, if you compared them to last season, we probably gave away the ball that often in the Championship. It's just unfortunately now when we do it, we're getting caught out.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, it's at the risk of being reminded of the cricket, which is going so bloody well. A lot of the discourse around the England team at the minute in the cricket is with the batting, choosing the wrong option at the wrong time, being overly aggressive when it's not needed, whatever, without getting into the weeds of trying to make a cricket podcast. But it strikes us that that's basically what you're getting at when you talk about the way that we lose the ball sometimes, because it isn't losing the ball. As you say, that's just part and parcel of football. Shows a team who has 100% possession in a game. I don't think they exist. But the one against Bournemouth in particular, like, you can accept losing the ball if you try in a risky pass that's, if it comes off, we'll be in there, or it'll be down the line and it can just whip across in. It's different when it's just like a slack 5 or 10 yard ball, like the one for Bournemouth's second goal, where the person who, I think it was Talby, played the pass, a bit lackadaisical. I remember Traore was a few yards off, and just like, you could tell that he just didn't know, like, do I go at the ball? Do I drop? He ended up doing neither. And then that's when the goal comes. And I think what frustrates people about that is even if that pass worked, what do we gain? Because I'm pretty sure Talby was passing backwards or at the very most sideways. So I think generally, by and large, we're pretty good at judging those moments, probably helped massively by Xhaka's influence in the midfield as well, because we see, don't we, how much he dictates during games. But our biggest strength, in my opinion, is that ability to sniff a moment and pounce. Those are where some of our best goals come from. And then our ability to basically do the reverse of that and be able to see from a defensive point of view, there's the space, there's the danger, people can shift, people can go. I think we're a very situationally aware team in general, but that is, I think, what you're kind of getting at with where the improvement needs to come in possession. And I think particularly like I said, the frustrating aspect is just, if you're trying a 20-yard through ball, yeah, great, because if it comes off, we'll get a goal. If you're trying a 20-yard backwards pass and you still get it wrong, maybe we could be thinking about that a bit more.
We do just have to accept the fact that any time a team loses a ball in this division, you'll get punished. The one against Arsenal, where I think it was Saka scored. So that will always highlight those. That will always highlight those moments. But we are talking we are talking fractions here. We are not talking about massive issues that need weeks on the training ground to sort. We are just talking about split-second moments where we could be ever so tight, slightly tighter. So yeah. I think you're right. It's something to be aware of. It's not going to see us get relegated or anything like that. It's a team learning, a young team, and it's something for us to strive for to get even better.
Yeah. Well, I think that the point is that we've really annoyed the Premier League by not rolling over and having our tummies tickle. But look, we're going to take a quick break now because we'll get into City and the lads' predictions after the break. So we'll be back after these few ads.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first, you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
This is Jason Momoa, and I'll be your finance professor today. Welcome to Banking Smarter 101 with Chime. Bam! First lesson, sign up for Chime and set up direct deposit. You'll be joining millions of members banking fee-free. Second lesson, get cash back on eligible purchases while building credit and a higher APY on your savings. That's how you bank smarter this season. Fa-la-la-la-la, class dismissed. Join Chime today.
Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services and a secure Chime Visa credit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. Members FDIC. Optional services and products may have fees or charges. Details at chime.com/fees-info. With a qualifying direct deposit, earn 1.5% cash back on eligible secure Chime Visa credit card purchases. On-time payment history may have a positive impact on your credit score. Results may vary. APY means annual percentage yield. Learn about credit building and more at chime.com.
And welcome back to How We're the Podcast with our sponsors LiveScore Bet. And we're going to get into Manchester City now because, look, as I said to Ned and Manoa, I mean, God, crisis time at Man City, isn't it? 6 titles in 7 years and then finished third last season. With a disappointment like that, I don't know how City fans cope. But because of what happened last year, Jonny, do you think teams and opposition fans like ourselves look at City in the same way as we used to?
It's a funny question, that, because what's how we used to look at them? Because the Man City pre-2008 doesn't exist anymore, really.
Well,
I know it's the same club, but
kind of invincible, really, at times when they were just swapping sides away.
Well, this is what I mean. Are we looking back to the pre-Pep period, or are we looking back to the early Pep period?
Well, you can go back to the Joe Roll period if you like. But, I was...
No, I think we'll keep it slightly more relevant, maybe, just about. But I mean, I think what I'm trying to get at is, even within Pep's tenure, it's felt like there have been very distinct Man City teams. And I mean that with particular comparison to somebody like a Jurgen Klopp, where, yes, obviously Klopp was in charge at Liverpool for 7-8 years in the end. So he didn't just have one team the whole way through. But I don't think you could pinpoint like a season where Klopp's first team shifts to his second team, if you know what I mean. Whereas Pep had some very, very different like 11s and tactics. He had that season where they won the league without a striker. And now look at them. They've got the best striker on the planet. The most number 9, whoever number 9'd. And they won a league with Phil Foden and Gabriel Jesus playing false 9. So they've always been a team who I think you'd be a fool to expect a Pep team to go, or certainly a Pep City team, to go into any subsequent season playing the same way they just did, because he's just not that kind of manager. And that comes with its obviously its advantages, but also its pitfalls. Like you say, Chris, I mean, the horror show they just endured last season. I mean, okay. What was the guy thinking?
I mean, just fold the club, eh? I mean,
yeah, get that fraud back to Catalonia and fold the club. But yeah, so there's an amount of natural sort of variation within Pep City teams anyway, where obviously players move on and get replaced as at any club. But I do think they change their almost identity more than a top team does. Certainly a top team that's winning titles. normally it's, a case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So with all that in mind, I always find City away to be a really, really tough one to call. So it's a bloody good job you've got me on the preview. But it's, they can always spring a surprise because I can never get out of my head that Pep Guardiola's the manager who got City to their first Champions League final and then rocked up and didn't play a defensive midfielder or or played two defensive midfielders out of nowhere, whatever it was. He had this habit, and I think he's tempered it a little bit over the last few years, but sometimes even Pep overthinks himself, tries to beat himself mentally, even in the biggest games. So he's always got the potential to mix things up. Having said that, I wouldn't expect City to be, playing around with huge amounts of rotation or anything, because as much as we joke about how dreadful finishing third and stuff last season, by their standards, that is a failure. They didn't win any silverware. They weren't in the top two. And I think what'll have hurt them most is Arsenal were their main rivals, and then Liverpool came out of nowhere and beat both of them. So they'll be stinging from that. Their pride will have been hurt. And there's a lot of winners in that team, obviously, because they've won 1 million Premier Leagues. But that, you know what I mean? That distills into a package where not only are they a quality outfit, not only are they experienced at winning and used to dominating this league, they've also got a tactically extremely astute manager who's not afraid to shake things up. And all of that it combines into a package where I look at it and think, actually, this is the sort of team and is the sort of manager who I think could not so much have Bris' number, but they could kind of see him coming a bit. And I think Pep would find it easier to get into Bris' head than any other manager in the Premier League. Again, partly because the bloke's just a genius, but also I do think his style is one of the more suited to being able to deal with us. Obviously, it's still got to, we have to get the right plan on the day. They have to get the right plan on the day. The players have to be bang at it, etc., etc. But with massive contrast to Liverpool, where Slot hasn't got a clue what he wants to do tactically, and even like in Arsenal, where that was a completely different challenge because you know exactly what Arsenal are going to do and exactly what Mikel Arteta is going to try. The trouble is nobody can stop them. Whereas this, for me, it feels like the most unique challenge I think that we've come across this season. So it should be a fascinating game. But I would put this as the one that I was most confident we would lose points in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and Andrew, the season started quite badly, as far as City are concerned, because they won 2 of the first 5, lost home to Spurs and away to Brighton. But they've won 7 and 9 since, and they're 5 points behind Arsenal. So I think they're going to be happy that they're within touching distance of Arsenal. But their last 2 games, even though they've won them, 3-2 at home to Leeds, and Leeds took them closer than they would have liked. 5-4 away at Fulham, and again, Fulham did the same thing. But you just get a feeling with these games, Andrew, that that you can have a go when you play City, which I don't think people thought that a few years ago.
You're right. There was an aura around them previously that they were just a machine that were unstoppable, and you're not getting that sense this season. There was a real big flip last year where I think it was just before Christmas, they suddenly went from doing well to going through a real sticky patch. And we're talking relatively speaking. Like you say, for them, finishing third is a poor season. For them, a sticky patch is only 2 wins out of 10 or whatever, whereas some other teams would be like, we're doing better.
Wolves wouldn't mind it.
Exactly. So, yeah, there is this idea that they are vulnerable ever so slightly. And there's also this idea that Sunderland, as we've said earlier, are better than even we think we are. The problem with that, of course, is we all went into the Man United game thinking, hey, we've got a chance here, and then suddenly we're 2-0 down. There's every chance Man City could do that again. They could blow any team away. The chances of it, though, against Sunderland are nowhere near as big as they used to be. I liked when you were asking Jonny there, how do we see Man City now to how we saw them previously? And the question was, are we talking about the 2008 version or which one of Pep's eras? I mean, I remember Man City under Brian Horton and Alan Ball, and I remember there was hell on because Francis Lee used to play for them, but was then their owner. He'd retired from playing football, but then made a bit of money selling toilet rolls or toilet paper or something. So if you want to compare previous versions of Man City to the current one, that is night and day. But yeah, they're not the all-conquering, all-sweeping Man City that we've become used to in previous years, and that there is a chance of teams getting at them. The Leeds game, that was at Man City, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were at home.
Yeah, so yeah, Sunderland are canny decent on the road. Why not? Why not believe we can do something against them?
Yeah, I mean, I might be biased, Jonny, but I genuinely do think Sunderland have played a massive part in the Premier League feeling a lot fresher this season. You know, that if you mentioned the last couple of seasons and how promoted sides have just kind of just rolled over and accepted their fate kind of early on, and then the rest of the Premier League being a bit dull for the rest of the season. And, playing into that, there's been a lot of backlash by a lot of pundits about the way Pep Guardiola plays. And, that you mentioned the tiki-taka going back, and he's maybe evolved that a little bit, but still very patient, and people get a little bit frustrated with it. It feels like we've come up to the Premier League and we've just come up with this brand new, almost kind of, not brand new, but we've surprised the Premier League by just going at them and not really kind of trying to play the way people expect us to play. Does it feel like it's two completely different styles coming up against each other in this game?
Certainly in terms of how, well, I was going to say in terms of how direct we are, but I do think you're right to identify that City have sort of shifted a little bit that way themselves. Obviously, having somebody like Haaland up front necessitates it. So we're probably more similar to City this season than we would have been at any other time since Pep Guardiola took over there. If this was 3-4 years ago, and we were playing the way we are now, but City were playing the way we were then, we'd probably be absolute polar opposites, wouldn't we? But yeah, it's been a bit of a wider trend, I think, in the Premier League. I mean, certainly this season, I think it feels like it's taken off so quickly this season, because not only have we gone from the two extremes of the promoted teams all coming up being open and expansive and then getting torn to bits, to this season it feels like us and Leeds and Burnley have all come up with the right fundamentals in place in terms of style of play, and they're a bit tighter and a bit more well organised. And then on top of that, you've got Arsenal are this season's top dogs, and they play a very direct style of football. A lot of set pieces, long throws, that kind of thing. So you do see it throughout the league now, and I think it's a little bit of sort of right time, right place where we're concerned, because I think Bris was going to play this way regardless. It seems from everything that he said and what we've seen of him that he's not he's not looked into his crystal ball and gone, right, by about 2025, the Premier League's going to be playing that way, so I better just learn how to coach that. I think these are just the fundamental ways that he sees football, and I think it's a little bit of luck in a sense that we've managed to get this marriage of coach and club together at just the right time for that to be the style of football that's effective. But again, it goes back to a little bit of, we sort of talked about this within ourselves at times last season, where you could tell we were almost playing Premier League ready style of football in the Championship, obviously with a much, much lower quality level in the squad. And so I think this season we are more similar to City than we otherwise would have been, but I actually think it's because they've got more similar to us. Whereas normally your mark of appreciation for a smaller club or a lesser team doing well is, they look like watching Pep. They look like watching Pep's Man City. Whereas now it is almost a little bit the other way, where it's like, actually Pep can go direct. City can play with a proper striker and a proper number 9. So yes, I do think we're a little bit more similar to them, but I actually think, and that maybe is where you can look at it, and if you're going to predict us to win, that's where you maybe look for that little sort of avenue that we can go in and try. Because if we can emphasize that, like, look, some of the best parts of their game are our game, we can do that as well, and we're well drilled in it. The problem is when you're coming up against somebody who's got 100 Premier League goals in about 112 games, then, you can be the most well-drilled and organised outfit in the world. He still might score 4 past you, so we'll see. But I think it's the best time we could have played Man City since Pep's come in. Not that helps loads.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, with the draw at Liverpool, I know we've got a big game around the corner, but is is the pressure all off Sunderland? I mean, because we were talking about free hits. People said that before the Liverpool game. Is it the case of a free hit in this one?
I think there's an element of the pressure being off, just purely because of the amount of points we've accrued already. How many times did we hear that December was going to be a write-off? Well, it's not going to be a write-off. I personally didn't ever think it would be. But if for some reason it ends up being like that, it's not the end of the world. Would drop to mid-table instead of being instead of pushing for the hoping and considering can we be challenging for Europe. So yeah, there's a little element of that. I'm very rarely one to say you can write off games or it's a free hit. And it's very rare that I'd be concerned about the following game. But it is a bit peculiar, this scenario where we've done enough points-wise already. We're against a team who could very easily, at the drop of a hat, beat us anyway. So for once, I am ever so slightly thinking about that mag match which comes after. Normally, I'd be very much of the school of, well, it's only 3 points against Man City up for grabs. It's only 3 points against the Mags. You've got to take each game as it comes. So the timing is intriguing. I think another thing that makes this the timing of this fascinating is Man City have got Real Madrid in midweek. Now, in the past, you would have seen Man City at home in the Premier League against some sort of relegation fodder. Guardiola would mix up his team with one eye on that big game against a fellow European competitor. I don't think he can afford to do that. So let's not be too worried about, is it a free hit for us? It's definitely not the free hit for Man City that they might have thought it was. And he'll be gutted. He'll be absolutely gutted, having gone over the footage of our performance against Liverpool, that he can't rest 1 or 2 ahead of the big game against Real Madrid. We're going to be posing them problems, which is a mad thing to say. I mean, it's mad to hear Jonny talk about how our style is similar to Man City's. You're right, but it's all peculiar. And the timing of the game is a bit of a queer one, and it means there's going to be different factors at play. But Man City are going into this game with as many considerations as we are. We are not just there for them to beat easily without having to give us a second thought.
Just because you mentioned the Mag game, should we do 30 seconds on the yellow card situation? Xhaka and Siddiqui?
Yep, go on then, Jonny.
What yellow card situation? I've never heard anybody mention that.
That's why I very deliberately said 30 seconds, because I can't be asked going for 10 minutes on this. But
I was going to say, Jonny, just quickly, we'll get into the team selection in a minute, because it won't impact that. But I'll get into it now. But in terms of, does it come into the manager's thinking at all?
Yeah.
And how does it impact psychologically Xhaka and Siddiqui? Because they're human. They know there's a massive game next week.
I think in terms of the first part of that, I think it's quite easy, because regardless of what any of us would do, I don't think Bris is going to even spare a single thought over the next however many hours it is until the game when this comes out. He's not going to be thinking whatsoever about suspensions for the following games. He's just not. Everything he says, every press conference he's ever given, every interview tells you that he is, and he tells us himself in his own words every week, next game, next game, next game, next game. Nothing else factors. So he won't care. Out of the two players, I'm more worried about Siddiqui than I am Xhaka, because I just think with Xhaka's experience, he's far less likely to, just get sucked into that challenge he doesn't quite have to make, or just push it a little too far with the ref.
But just quickly, Jonny, there was an instance, a split second against Liverpool. Somebody broke away. Liverpool broke and I think Siddiqui thought about it, just take him on for the team. And he pulled his leg back in and didn't make the challenge. And
well, that's what I mean. There's the foolishness. He should have done it in that game, being out for City.
But it does come into their thinking, doesn't it?
I think you can tell that it does, because look, they're not changing their play style for the sake of one yellow card. Of course, the most important thing is having them on the pitch playing well. But I would be shocked if you see Xhaka or Siddiqui do one of your classic trip somebody 70 yards out when they're about to go on the break, but you're not really in danger. When you're on 1 or 2 yellow cards, you do that without thinking. I imagine there'll be maybe 1 or 2 times where we just see them just rein themselves in just that little bit. But fingers crossed we'll be all right anyway.
They've coped long enough. I mean, they've both been in this position for a few weeks now.
I want to say 3 weeks or 3 games for Siddiqui and 4 for Xhaka, is it?
Yeah, but now you're at the business end of that timeline, because it's all geared up to the Newcastle game. That's where it's all led to, hasn't it? That time, nobody really cares after that. Whatever happens after that.
It's arguably the opposite, isn't it? I'll be disappointed if they don't get booked against the Mags.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Channel you're in a Roy Keane, get them to smash into somebody.
This is where it's I am conflicted, because normally I'm a big believer of, well, it's still only 3 points against the Mags. But you said there, doesn't matter what happens after them. It doesn't matter what happens for the Brighton game afterwards. And for once, I am feeling a bit like that myself, because I think we've got a real good chance this time of absolutely ruining them.
Anyway, whoa. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's get back into the City game, Andrew, because the manager mentioned, talking about tactics, the 4-4-2 that we lined up with out of possession early on in the Liverpool game. He said, well, that could turn into a 5-4-1. And I think at the start of the second half, actually, it did turn into a 5-4-1. I mean, he seems to kind of tweak these things every now and again. Do you think it's possible he's got something up his sleeve for taking on City? Because you'd expect City scouts to be watching the Liverpool game thinking that's the blueprint we're going to go at the Etihad with.
Of course, he 100% will have something up his sleeve, because he's had something up his sleeve every single game. I mean, why do we even bother trying to second guess him? I mean, it's an absolute fool's errand.
That's my next question out then.
Yeah, sorry. Should we just stop recording there then? Have I killed everything? He puts so much thought into things and prepares. Nothing's done by chance or off the cuff. So yeah, he will have his specific plans for Man City. And something we're finding week by week is there's no such thing for Sunderland now to be 4-4-2 or 4-5-1. We can use those terms to just explain a rough idea of what we're doing, but there's so much fluidity between the players. I mean, what was Hume against Anfield? Was he a fullback? Was he a wing back? Was he a winger? He was a bit of everything.
Attacking midfielder when he crashed it off the bar, wasn't he?
Aye, exactly. Listen, this is the total football era of Sunderland AFC, I've decided.
Wow.
So let's strap in and enjoy it.
Well, there's the title of the pod as well. When you were going through the formations, I thought you were going to go 4-4, Athletic 4, East 5-5 for a second there. Sounded like you were on a roll. But
Super Cali go ballistic.
Exactly. But Jonny, Andrew says I'm not supposed to ask you because we're not supposed to guess what he's going to do. But
I did not say that at all. I said it's hard. I said it's difficult to do.
But Jonny, brilliant performance at Anfield. How does he change anything? I mean, surely it must be, just tempting just to say, well, there's the same 11. But surely Man City, you're going to be expecting that.
Trey Hume's the key for me, actually. And Andrew identified him as the one player where you kind of go, like, where is he playing? You can kind of walk out of the room and come back in and look back at the telly sort of 6 times through a game if you want. And every time you'll see Hume in a different position. You'd be like, so he's a right back and a right mid and a winger and a centre midfielder and all the rest of it. But I think it's pretty clear from what we've seen so far that of the squad that we have, Hume is the one, I think, who Bris really trusts to play these sort of hybrid roles where he is spending, 20 minutes in a back 4, then it's, 10 minutes in a back 5, and then it's this, then it's that. And I think it's with good reason. I think Hume's one of the most tactically switched on players that we've got. I mean, look, obviously somebody like Granit Xhaka maybe stands a level above, but Hume's always, because we saw even in his earlier days at Sunderland, when he was doing that sort of inverted role into midfield, even as far back as the late Tony Mowbray days. And, some of the times when Dodds and Peel were in charge, as much as we don't really want to think about them, it was always Hume who was given these kind of roles. And I think it speaks a lot to clearly his ability to, take on information and be able to understand his role on the pitch. So if Hume is going to be, I mean, we don't know if there's any injury concerns, but it is a lot of games in a short time. So there may still be fitness concerns, even if it's not an outright injury. If Hume starts the game, then I think there's a much higher chance that we do something similar to Anfield, because with him in there, it unlocks a lot of these different, almost sort of rolling formations throughout a game that we can cycle through. I think if Hume's not in the team, and if we're going to change something, he's probably the man who's in danger of dropping out. If he goes, then I think we're much more likely to be a bit more rigid. Whether it's a 4 or a 5, then it would be one of those sort of set and forget kind of formations a bit more, rather than the more fluid total football, 70s Brazil style that we've been seeing so far.
Total football, as Andrew put it. But just quickly, Jonny, because Hume's the main man in terms of dictating the shape potentially. But who were the biggest question marks in terms of keeping their position in the side from that 11 who started at Liverpool?
Well, I think the first area you look at is the wide areas. So that was the area that was most different against Liverpool. We had, Brobbey was obviously up front, but then, most games, and certainly more often than not, we've lined up with 2 wingers. So whether that's Traore on the right, whether it's been Talbi on the right, whether that's Adingra on the left, Talbi moving out to the left, even Lafay filling in there. I think the midweek game was the most narrow that we've lined up, excluding the wing backs. So if he's going to make a change, for me, that would be the first area I'd be looking at, purely because I think Man City are weakest defensively at fullback. Depending on who exactly they pick, they've got somebody like Matheus Nunes who plays at right back a lot, who is a good footballer and he cost 50 million, but he isn't a right back. He was signed as a midfielder. And I think, is it Nico O'Reilly generally plays at left back, or, whoever it is exactly, it's not the solid settled options of, when it was, even you go back a bit longer than Pep, when it was, Zabaleta at right back for Man City every week for like 8 years. They had Clichy, they had Kolarov, these players. That's not the state we're in now. So I'd be wanting to see maybe a Talbi come back in, maybe Traore come back in, whatever way we need to work it. I'd like to see a bit more natural width. But having said that, if we do stay the same, I'm not going to be complaining, because I've tried to second guess Bris before and it leaves us with egg on my face. So,
well, Andrew, it is, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but if you were a Man City scout and you were kind of relied on and paid big money to go and watch sides and report back, you'd be saying, oh, well, I saw Sunderland do this. And then the next question is going to be, well, okay, so what's he going to do against us? But Bris has got the whole Premier League asking, almost kind of questioning, what is Sunderland going to do? Suddenly we turned up at Chelsea, did something slightly different. Then we rock up at Anfield, Hume playing right midfield, which nobody, Slot would have never in a million years guessed that we were going to line up 4-4-2 when in the first couple of minutes. So is a City going to have problems? But who are they going to be questioning? Are they going to be saying, well, actually, he might bring Robbie back out, he might bring Talbi out, and put Traore back in? What are the biggest, or what are maybe the the closest things we can say, well, this could be a change and this could be a change?
However, I mean, the Man City scout's struggling. You expect me to?
But you know more about Sunderland than he does.
Yeah.
In theory.
Yeah, in all seriousness, I can very well see some scouts being called in on a Monday morning after playing Sunderland and saying, "Did you even go and watch them last week? Have you got any sort of receipts to prove that you were at Anfield, or like did you buy a burger outside the ground or something?" Because
Showing them a tweet on like Footy Scran, like, no, honestly, I went, look, I had this burger. But I mean, even when we played Chelsea, Enzo Maresca come out and said, well, I've never seen Sunderland play a back five. And we all between us went, wait, we did it at Old Trafford, like, so I don't know what games his scouts have been watching. So the Chelsea scouts have probably already had this dressing down you're going on about.
Yeah. Exactly. And there was the quote he gave after the Bournemouth game, Bris, where he said he'd played a 4-4-2. Now, I definitely was at that match, and I do have the receipts to prove it. And I never once thought we were a 4-4-2. It is tricky to know where he'll go. I actually, you know how I said it's pointless us trying to work out what he's going to do. I mean, I've just, well, exactly. I've tripped myself up because I have written out 2 potential starting 11s, and I've spent the morning pretending I was a football manager.
I knew you would have.
Well, exactly. And I think a potential change that will happen, I wouldn't be surprised if Gertruda comes into midfield.
Oh.
You know, you were mentioning earlier about Xhaka and Siddiqui and the yellow cards and blah, blah, blah. I think he can kind of avoid the question with Siddiqui. I think Siddiqui might be rested, not necessarily because of his situation with the yellows. Just the lad is in the wars. I mean, he's playing with a dirty, great big, like, bruise on his lip from getting elbowed. He's playing through this supposed ankle injury that he's having to nurse through games. He's just had 2 matches in the space of a few days where he has run himself into the ground. Might be an opening there to just say, well, all right then, we'll give him a bit of a breather, put Gertruda in there, because that then gives you the flexibility. If you do then want to change to a 5, there's somebody already on the pitch to do it. Something I thought about.
Well, that's a really good point, actually, Andrew, because, you know, when we've moved to a back 5 and we've had this period where we changed the formation that we had all of last season and the start of this season, where we had that 3 central midfielders, very compact, and it started off, Siddiqui was bombing up and down. He was making those runs on that left-hand side. Since this change of system, Siddiqui's played a very different role in the team, hasn't he?
He has. His role's changed, and that's credit to him. I mean, it's credit to Hugh. We've had a bit of a joke about saying what position he was playing in, and Jonny walked out the room, and when he came back in, he thought he saw Hume putting on the gloves for 5 minutes to give Roofs a bit of a tryout up the pitch. But we've got players who now are capable of doing these different jobs if needs be. So you're right that Siddiqui has ever so slightly tweaked his game. I mean, I don't want to see him out of the team. I think he's doing fantastically well. I just wondered if it was something that might be on his mind.
It is a good shout, because I do think he's gone slightly under the radar more, because I don't think he's quite as kind of, let's say, dynamic as he was in the early part of the season. And I think a rest at some point might actually do him good. It's just getting that timing right. So you feel Gertruda might come in. What about Talby out wide? He keeps his place. What about Robbie up front? Does Isidore come back in, or do we swap roles? Because, you know, dare I say it, Isidore was a finisher, but didn't quite finish it. But, you know, do they swap roles again?
I'm not sure about the Talby question there. He does seem to kind of come in and out of Bris's favour, or maybe not favour, come in and out of his thinking. And he really likes Traore. So there might be a bit of shuffling around there. I'm a lot more confident in predicting that Broby starts again. Right. Broby did some really good stuff against Liverpool. He's done some really good stuff in in the home games.
Canate really struggled with them, didn't he?
He did. And none of us are expecting to see the lad play 90 minutes. He did start a flag, and it's pretty obvious that he had a disrupted summer. But when he is on the pitch, he's contributing. I think it was Martin reminded me of a situation shortly before he got brought off. He controlled the ball brilliantly and swiveled on it and played the ball forward for Lefay to run onto. It was such simple football, but it was brilliant. It was exactly what we needed. And that then does help us. If we do want to be a little bit more compact against Man City, having somebody who can keep hold of the ball for a few seconds and allow one or two to get up front will work for us. Can I just, on the subject of team changes and potential people having a rest, can I just say something about Xhaka, please, Chris, if that's all right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
No, there's no guarantees it'll be interesting. Just we're talking about the potential of, or maybe not even yourselves, but certainly people at work have been chatting about it, and it's part of the discourse. Do we potentially stand him down for this game to keep him fresh for Newcastle? Isn't it bizarre that we have got somebody who has been described as potentially our best ever signing in the Premier League era, potentially the best ever midfielder in Sunderland's Premier League history? People feel able to consider the possibility of dropping him against one of the best teams in the world and not be petrified that will lead to us getting absolutely turned over. I would keep him in the team. I don't think we should drop him. I think he can play the game well and just focus purely on that match. But just as we're talking about various potential team selections, it just blows my mind that we are now in a position where we can have these conversations and consider potentially holding some amazing players back, and yet still think there might be a chance of us doing something.
Yeah. I really can't say there would be some statement if we left Xhaka out.
Bris would never even consider it, would he?
No, but it's it's something people are talking about.
It's a compliment to Xhaka, really,
Yeah.
isn't it? The underlying sentiment there is Xhaka's so good, I really want to watch him in a home derby. What? I mean, next year's not guaranteed. Like, what's going to happen?
But no, it's that compliment, but it's a compliment to the whole squad as well, that some people can fully justify to themselves thinking, I would rest him,
and we'd still possibly have enough to get a result.
Yeah.
I think it tells you more about how much people want to beat Newcastle as well, to be quite honest.
Well, there's that as well.
Jonny, just very quickly then, end that conversation, because you were nodding along with Brian Broby keeping his place in the side. Now, I thought in a game like that, it's going to be fairly similar in terms of us, conceding territory, conceding possession. I thought he was brilliant in terms of winning those free kicks he should have never have won, getting us up the pitch, giving us a breather. And I think he plays that role better than Isidore.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I can't remember which pod it was on, but I was definitely speaking before the Liverpool game, basically just saying I wanted, not to try and blow my own trumpet, but anyone can see the type of player Broby is. So I was saying I want him in the team for everything you just mentioned, and he did it all brilliantly, didn't he, for 60 minutes or so. Like Andrew said, he's obviously not going to play the full 90. He's not fully up to speed just yet, and certainly not ready to play multiple 90 minutes in a week or anything like that. So we know that whether it's Isidore or Mayenda, somebody's getting a chance behind him. But that first 60 minutes, I think Broby will give them plenty to think about, because there was moments against Bournemouth, and there was that moment, I think, in the second half against Liverpool where he almost spins in behind and latches onto a loose ball, but it can't quite get out in front of him quickly enough. So he'll help occupy them. And even just by having a striker like Broby sort of in and around their defensive area, it just, like, even subconsciously, they just stay just a few yards deeper just because they know that he can spin them and he can get him behind. And then Isidore, I mean, you made a bit of a reference before, Chris, to him being a finisher, with maybe not so much finishing on Wednesday, but he got in the position and swap that game round, as in Isidore starts and Brobby comes on. Isidore can't do what Brobby did for an hour, and Brobby can't get in the position Isidore did at the end.
Yeah.
So I think in almost every way, except the ball actually hitting the net, it worked as perfectly as it could have. So that should be the blueprint for me for these type of away games, especially.
Yeah, and that was a lovely tune you gave us with your trumpet there, Jonny. But let's get into predictions. But let's look at the odds with our sponsors, LifeScore Bet. Just looking at the odds at the time of recording, Manchester City are 5-1 on to get all 3 points against the Lads.
Ooh, 5-1 feels longer than I would have expected those odds to be.
Sunderland are priced at a tempting 10-1 to get all 3 points. And the draw is 5-1. So some decent odds there. First goal scorer, by the way, I was looking at Haaland, obviously. And the last time I looked, I will just double check. It'll be there or thereabouts. But anytime goal scorer, Erling Haaland in the game, 3-1 on to score at any time during the game.
And you've just made us think what the perfect way is for us to get a clean sheet. I'll stick £1,000 on Haaland to score any time, and then there's not a chance he's getting anywhere near the 6-yard box. So I'll do you a favour, lads, and I'll sink like £1,000 of my own money, right? I'll just bet on every City player to score. We are golden.
It's funny, actually. So I was going to say, because the next goal scorer any time for Man City is Phil Foden, 23-20. There's a bit of a gap there, to be honest.
I was just going to say that, Jonny, you don't need to put any money on to put a hex against Haaland. 2 words for you, Omar Aldrete. Haaland won't be getting a sniff. I look forward to this being thrown back at this. But did you say as well that wasn't just first goal scorer, that was to score at any time?
Yeah, that was any 3-1 on any time goal scorer.
So they might get a consolation once we're 4 or 5-0 up. Haaland might just pull one back to make the Man City fans feel a bit better. So yeah, that might be worth looking at.
Yeah, if you look at Sunderland to be first goal scorer, Isidore's 9-1. Interestingly, you've got Mayenda at 12-1 after that. Roby's 13-1, Traore 15-1, and so on. But
what price of Luke O'Nien?
He's not actually on the list that I'm looking at, so you might have to ask special odds on that one.
I ring them up.
if he comes on left wing again, I think those odds might shorten pretty quickly.
Yeah, newly minted Premier League left winger Luke O'Nien to give him his full title.
So let's have your predictions. We'll start with you, Andrew.
2-2. It's going to be 2-2 draw, I reckon.
2-2. That's 14-1. Andrew, you would get for that a bit.
I don't care. I don't care about the money. Hang on, we're being sponsored by them, so I'll change that. No. In all seriousness, I could win a bet. I could lose a bet. If Sunderland do get a 2-2 draw, I'll be absolutely over the moon. I'll be flying.
Right. Well,
this evening.
Andrew, and so in that 2-2 scenario, do we take the lead and Man City come back, or the opposite?
We do both. I'm not sure which way around, but they'll take the lead at one point and we'll equalise, and vice versa.
So the opposite of Arsenal, basically, where we went up and then pulled it back.
And
possibly,
yeah. Well, Andrew fancies a Desmond. Jonny, what do you fancy?
I'm going to go for a Nelson. I'll go 1-1.
1-1. So what's that?
Yeah.
9-1.
Yeah, I'm pulling some splinters out my arse here, like.
I don't know if you saw the overlap this week. I don't know, with Roy Keane and Jill Scott and Neville Carragher and Ian Wright. But they did the Super Six at the end, and I think they were one side. I think Keane's and Jill Scott's side went for a 3-1 defeat, and Neville and Carragher went for a 3-0 City win.
Oh, not much belief in us there, is there?
So they both think we're going to get hammered.
This is one where I'm predicting a draw, but like if I err one side, I'm erring the side of a loss. I will be honest, but I certainly think we've got enough in us to go there and like give them a real tough game. And I'll be surprised if we lose by more than a goal.
Is that the main point out of going to Manchester City, Jonny? That we come out of it going, yeah, we had a go. We're happy with that. Proud of the lads. Well played, regardless of what the scoreline is at the end.
Yes, and like Andrew sort of pointed out before, you look at the points that we've already picked up in some of these tough games. I just think it's important now to at least maintain that level of momentum of we can stay in the game, we can give anybody a game. As long as we don't come away from any particularly away trips now this season, getting done 3 or 4 or giving away bucket loads of chances, as long as we're competitive and we're still in these games right till the end, then you kind of almost just topping off that goodwill meter, which we've already filled with Stamford Bridge and with, the midweek, the Arsenal game. I know that wasn't away, but you take my point. Yeah, so the performance is more important than the points in this particular game.
Yeah. Well, my head says 2-0 City and my heart says a goalless draw, which is pretty tempting at 15-1. I think we might keep them out. I'm not entirely sure we'll score, but I think we might just keep them out long enough.
We're due a clean sheet now as well, aren't we? You've not had one in a few weeks.
Yeah, it might be a bit of a nail biter. I think one of them where we're under pressure.
Just to check, lads, we are due a clean sheet against Man City.
Well, we're due a win against Man City, actually, looking at the record, never mind a clean sheet.
But it's the fact that
we're due a clean sheet, we may as well get it away at the Etihad.
It's not a case of on like probability we're due a clean sheet. It's a very serious we can hold out Man City.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I still come away from these recordings just kind of thinking like, did we just actually say all that? Is this real still? Is it definitely happening? I'm not about to wake up in May, am I?
Sometimes, when like on Ready to Go, somebody will say, oh, I've been listening to an opposition pod and they've got their head in the clouds. They all think they're going to walk over Sunderland. I do worry that, opposition fans are listening to us lot going, oh, well, lads, let's get real here. But why not? Why not at the moment? Just enjoy it and believe in the team to give it the best go.
Absolutely. What a place to finish on. And it was your two job to stop me waffling on, and we waffled on far too long, unfortunately. But really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Jonny. Always a pleasure, mate.
Always a pleasure, never a chore. And instead of stopping you waffle, we just joined in as much as we could, so that by comparison, you look less. So you're welcome.
So I'm less to blame than I thought. Thank you very much, Jonny. But thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate it, mate.
I appreciate it also. I love being on these, and I had, as always, completely forgotten any element of timekeeping whatsoever. Once you get us on about Sunderland, that is it. Good night.
Absolutely. And hopefully you've enjoyed it out there. And thanks again, everyone, for listening. Hopefully it's part of your match day routine, but hopefully you got enough time before kickoff, to be honest. If you've slept in, you might not have enough time. But anyway, don't forget, we'll have immediate reaction after the final whistle at the Etihad with a pod that should drop very soon after. So don't miss that. We'll also have all the reaction on the Roker Report website. So look out for the ratings and or everything else we do after that on the site. And we'll be no doubt recording first thing Sunday morning to get the reaction. And hopefully we've got, we'll see, but hopefully we've got Nick Barnes on this week to give us the lowdown what happened at the Etihad. Hopefully we'll be talking about 3 points for the lads. But from us, it's bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. Mm-hmm. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.